I want to know what it is Quick is trying to say.
And welcome everyone to the Four Tales podcast. I am your host, Kyrun Silva from Taurus Comics. Across the way is the Violet Vendor of Ace Blade, Danny J. Quick. And together, we are the only place to find two award-winning blurred comic creators talking to other comic creators. Now, currently, we are live on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and a host of other programs. So if you are listening and watching us, thank you for your support. Please don't forget, though, to hit the thumbs up button on YouTube. Like us there because we're trying to hit 100 followers, and we're about halfway there so far. But whatever platform you're on, if it's on Twitch, make sure you hit that thumbs up, or I think they do the heart there, notification, share, bring everything you are. If you do listen to our podcast through Apple iTunes, Spotify, please make sure that you are leaving as many reviews as possible because those reviews do help us to gain a bigger audience. But
Absolutely.
enough of that. Yeah. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Your intros are my favorite part of the show. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Violet Vendor of Ace Blade. I try to mix it up. I really do. I actually spend enough time in my day to find synonyms of purple.
I'm sure we're gonna run out someday. Whenever you run out is when I quit the show, though. So there's a little pressure there.
You might be quitting in like a couple of weeks because I'm starting to run out of purple synonyms, dude. I mean, this is episode 17. There aren't too many times I can think of ways to say purple that isn't purple. So I'll have to start recycling.
You're creative. I'm sure you can come up with something.
I am not that creative. I don't know who told you that lie. I am not creative at all, man.
Hey, I'm just happy to have our guest on this week. This is you've gotten to. I'm starting to tell people behind the scenes that you have these connections. You got these connections that you don't want to share with everybody. But I'm happy to be on the show because we get to interview all these great artists and creators. And this week, you want to introduce our guest?
I mean, I guess so. I thought you were going to do it, but sure. This week, we have the creator of Savage Dragon, writer and artist of a plethora of books like Spider-Man, Aquaman, Nova, Punisher, Doom Patrol, so many others. I really can't. I mean, if I wanted to name them all off, we'd be here the entire hour and still would have more left over. One of the founders of Image Comics, Erik Larsen. And let me bring him in.
Hi.
Oh. Hey, sir.
Hey, looking pretty?
Yeah, looking good, man. So thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day and joining us. This is, like I was mentioning earlier, this is a pleasure and an honor for us to have you on. And, thank you so much.
All right. You're quite welcome.
I do want to, I guess, pull the curtain back a little bit on this. And if anybody has listened to our podcast before, you'll know that I try to do a lot of research through Google and other podcasts that our guests are upon, just to make sure that I don't ask a lot of questions that are the same as you probably have heard so many times before. Yesterday, though, I was doing my research and I re-listened to the Rob Liefeld Observations podcast that you're on. Mm-hmm. And I realized that about 70-80% of my questions I had for you were the same things you answered on Rob's podcast. So a lot of what I go through today is going to be right off the top of my dome. So if it's rough, right. I apologize. But I mean, let's get into it. What are you working on right now so far?
I'm working on both Ant and Savage Dragon.
And you're doing the writing and art on both those books.
I'm doing the writing and arting on both, and we'll see how that works.
How do you find the time to do writing and artwork for 2 monthly series? I mean,
well, at this point, they're not monthly enough, so I don't have a good answer for you.
Okay. All right.
I was looking at them.
when things are clicking, this goes pretty quick. When things are not, it is a slow, difficult, complicated process. Right now, I'm in the midst of a slow, difficult, complicated process. So, you try to get to that sweet point where everything's just humming along, and all is right in the world.
So, how much caffeine does it take for you to get to that point?
I haven't found the magic number yet.
Okay.
Caffeine is good. How do you keep it fresh though? I know both Kyrun and I we've been doing this indie comics game for some years now, and I struggle myself to keep it fresh, to go through the grind of writing and promoting and all that.
That's the tough part is trying to come up with, all right, well, what have I not drawn before, and that can get to be difficult, because there's, you would think after this long that I've drawn a lot of different kinds of things, and I certainly have. So you just do your best. I think one of the things that helps, at least in terms of Savage Dragon, is just that it's set in real time, so characters are aging constantly, and so there's always something new that's like, oh, I haven't drawn first graders doing this before. So all right, let's see what that's all about. And you can kind of trick yourself a little bit in terms of having there be new kinds of situations that you haven't dealt with.
So when you first launched Savage Dragon, was that a concept that you had in mind, to have everything progress with time?
Yeah, that was the idea from the start. Was let's just have it so these characters are constant flux. I know it's because one of those things that people have sort of suggested about Marvel Comics over the years, or DC Comics, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if these characters grew up with us, and wouldn't that be neat? And it's like, well, they can't do it because they would essentially be killing the goose that, that's laying the golden eggs for them. And it's like, they're not going to have successive creators who are going to come aboard and create something as new and cool and iconic as Spider-Man was when he was introduced. So having their stuff set in real time would be a disaster for them. But for me, it's like, I'm going to kind of count on myself being able to come up with cool stuff and challenge myself to do that. So, all right, now you got to do that. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's one of the ways to keep it fresh is storytelling can always evolve, and having the story set in real time always gives you the chance to change it up, to get the characters to do new things and experience new experiences. So I think that's there's an audience out there for all these stories. So of course there are going to be people who want to see Batman's origins 100 times, but I'm not one of those people. So I prefer stories that grow and then will end eventually. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think Batman actually has
we'll see. We'll see about this ending part. I mean, at this point, I still feel like I got a few more years left in me. So let's keep doing this. But eventually you reach a point where you're like, all right, I'm just old and tired.
I was watching an interview that you did a while back also, and I was surprised to learn that you really grew up. Well, I know I always talk about with Kyrun, and I didn't grow up reading comics. There weren't comics in the areas that I lived. There were no stories and things like that. But I always watched all the cartoons. But I was surprised to learn that I believe you said your father read comics and you got into comics early because of that. Is that right?
He bought comics when he was a little kid, so we grew up with his comics. That was sort of part of our early existence. Was just he's got this comic book collection, and that's stuff that we can read and go through. And my brother and I kind of tore through my dad's comic book collection pretty literally. He gave them to us when we were way too young to fully appreciate it, and then after a while, he's like, I think I better take these things away from these kids before they just wreck them completely. So he kind of put them away for a few years while we got a little bit older, so that they could survive in some form. And then later on they came out again, and he just bought comics from when he was real little to comics grew up with him, which was kind of neat, because he bought whatever stuff he was interested in, Captain Marvel Adventures and whatever came to his little location where he was at in North Dakota. And then he kind of went from that to the EC stuff when it came out. He kind of delved right into that. So when they were doing Haunt of Fear and all that stuff, he was there. He bought all the EC stuff. Really, everything that EC put out, he bought. And when they shut down EC, he kind of stopped reading comics. But so that's what we grew up with. We grew up with all his old Uncle Scrooge and Powerhouse Pepper and whatever crazy comics he was getting. There's a few that I'm like, why? What is the fascination with this book? I don't even get it. It's like, this thing's terrible. But yeah, there was one where I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now. But he was just a guy who would participate in sports all the time. And it's like, well, of course. I mean, it's a drawn guy. He's going to win. And he did. It's like, can he jump over the fence? Yeah, he totally can because he's a drawing.
He's the main character. Of course he can do it. I think that's good. I'm going through that issue right now with my 10-year-old. He was struggling reading in class. So, I just started, getting him into these comics. He loves Power Rangers. So I started buying him Power Ranger comics and then, showing him some of my old Superman, Batman stuff. And, he likes to read it, but he doesn't care how he treats it as much. So,
there's that.
But, I'm just glad that he's reading it. And I'll just have to be careful to make sure I get it back from him before it, ends up as paper mache or something.
Well, some kids, they embrace it and some kids just don't. And, I've got kids and they just don't, they just did not take to it at all. And it's like, you guys have it so beautiful. You're surrounded by comic books. You got a whole house with thousands and thousands of comic books, much more than I ever had access to when I was a kid. And they just could not care less. I was like, oh, you wounded me.
No, I have that same thing with my kids. I tried introducing them as a young kid, and I have an 18-year-old now, and he doesn't want anything to do with comics. And my other two, they'd rather read a manga instead of reading a comic. And I'm like, I make comics for a living, damn it.
Yeah,
why don't you want to read these things?
Guys, come on, get with it. Oh, well.
I wonder if it's
my wife doesn't read my book either, so it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. I can get away with a lot more because you don't. So,
yeah, exactly. I was telling my wife that same thing. I was like, I used to beg her to read my comics all the time, but now I'm like, I don't know if I do want you to read it.
Yeah,
you might have something to say.
I get in more trouble when she does read it than when she doesn't. So. Like,
exactly.
I'll just keep this one under wraps.
I'm curious about your I see your long boxes back there. I'm curious if you have a filing system or if you just
I wish I did.
Just buy them.
Throw it in there.
At one point at one point there was a bunch of stuff that's in alphabetical order, and I've got a little bit of stuff that is in alphabetical order. And then, in the last 10, 15 years, I've just been like, oh, there's an open space in this box. I'll put this week's comics there. And it's just utter chaos. I need to go through and alphabetize everything, but I got stuff to do is a problem.
I think that would take you like a year to alphabetize all those books, though.
It would take me a long time. And also, I guess if I started going through it, I'd be like, I don't need this anymore, and I don't need that anymore. Because there's a lot of stuff. When I and also I had a fire like in '91, so 30 years ago, I lost all my dad's comics and all everything I had collected up until that point. And then when I was rebuying stuff, it's just chaos because you don't remember like, oh, what did I rebuy and what didn't I rebuy, and I kind of remember, I think I had that issue. It's like, you don't, and it just can be this frustrating experience because your brain kind of is playing tricks with you on all sorts of stuff. So it's like at this point I need like a bunch of Miller Daredevils and all this other stuff that's super expensive at this point. So it's like, all right, that's not going to come easily. And then I don't remember which ones I've got when I go and actually see them. Like,
yeah,
great.
Now next year,
I've got reprints of most everything that I want, so it works out all right.
See, you're better than Danny. Danny doesn't read most of the comics he buys.
That's not true. That's not true at all. I do. My system is just I have a box for the comics that I've read, and then I have 12 boxes for the ones that I haven't. That's just all. That's just the whole system.
Wow.
12 boxes.
I'm working through them, though. I'm working on it, though.
12 long boxes. Well, the thing is, once you're working for like a big company like a Marvel, a DC, or Image, at least with me, I'm one of the owners of Image Comics, so I get on their comp list, and they just send me everything we put out.
Jeez.
And that just adds up so quick. It's kind of crazy how many books that ends up being. You're just like, oh, Jesus, that's a ton of comics.
Next year marks the 30th anniversary of Image. Do you have anything special planned for Savage Dragon?
I hope to continue doing Savage Dragon. That's really all I got.
Still be going. That is special. That is.
Can I just endure? Is that all right?
That's
fine. I imagine we'll start packaging the old issues in a nice way because there's these collections that are coming out that people seem to be all into those big old omnibus kind of things. So it's like, let's put out some of the old stuff in a nice format and get that done. In terms of what I'm going to actually do with my book, cross that bridge when I come to it. Ideally, I'd be on issue 300 by then, but it's like, that's not likely to happen given that I'm on issue 260 something right now.
Well, you've been busy with other things. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, I get preoccupied with a lot of stuff.
Now, one thing I did find out as I was doing research on you is that when you initially created Savage Dragon years and years ago, you had him as completely different than what he is right now, where he would change using a magic word. Do you remember what the word was that he was supposed to say? Because I could never find any interview where he actually mentioned what word he would say to change.
Oh, I had a wizard in my comics whose name was Fonty, and so he would say his name. Fonty was it? That was that whole deal right there. And I did have that wizard guy eventually show up in the book as a character. So that's all part of continuity now. So it all counts. But yeah, that's what it was when I was a kid. And I did various things. I kept reinventing the character all the time. And sometimes he just says a magic word. Sometimes he changes under times of stress, or just because he wants to, or because I don't want to draw the other version doing this.
Wasn't that when his name was William Johnson at that time?
Yeah, one was William Johnson. The other was I had a race car driver named Flash Mercury, who was kind of a speed racer type.
Mm-hmm.
But then I kept coming up with different stuff. I would be like, oh, this guy is totally cool. Oh no, this guy is totally cool. So sometimes, like early on, he was an alien on another planet, and he fought crime there. And then it was like, no, I'll have him be like Captain Kirk and riding around in a spaceship. So he was doing that for a while, and it was all over the place. So which is why I couldn't just be like, I'll just do it as a kid over an Image, because it's like, no, this doesn't make any damn sense. You can't do that. It's the mind of a child. Here you go. This is complete.
Yeah, that'll be tough. That'll be tough to pull off today, doing a story like that.
Yeah, it's just, no. How about this? No, how about this? It's like, God, get it together, kid.
But at least shows that you still have a love.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, at least you still have that love to still create comics and be imaginative.
I was totally into it as a kid. So really what happened was I got my comics when I was a kid. I got to a certain point. I kept changing it, kept coming up with different things and different ways of doing stuff. And then at a certain point, me and a bunch of buddies self-published a comic book called Graphic Fantasy. And then, and that kind of was the end of my childhood version of the Dragon. Was right there. It was like, okay, and here's my final stories that I want to tell. And then I started over when we did stuff at Image. But kind of my initial thought going into this stuff at Image was, I'm going to eventually work those stories into continuity, and I'm going to redraw them. But it's gonna take me a while to do that, and I'm going to start at a different place, but I'm going to get to that same exact location that I did when I was a kid, and then I'm free to go and do whatever I want to, and that'll be awesome. So that was the thought. Was let's do it this way, and I eventually did. I redrew those 2 issues of Graphic Fantasy. One was Savage Dragon 63, and one was Savage Dragon 65. So, but that was fun. And then it was like, oh, what are you going to do now? I guess I'll destroy the Earth because I don't know what to do.
So have you been able to get the Deadly Duo in there yet?
Oh yeah. Everything's. Well, the Deadly Duo comic that I did when I was a kid would be more difficult to work in, because every issue was a team up issue, because they always needed a straight man, because they were both idiots. So I couldn't have them just be 2 idiots running around together. There had to be somebody who would be like the regular guy. And so we would a friend of mine, we both did the comic together. He would do one issue and I would do the next, and we would just try to trade back and forth. And we would just have the Hulk shows up, and then here's Batman walking by. And I had Savage Dragon show up once, but it wasn't like he was a regular dude in it. Mostly we were just using characters from regular comics that we wanted to use. And I don't remember offhand exactly what stories we did and that stuff anyway. But all that stuff went up in the fire just as everything else. So
yeah,
the only I had Graphic Fantasy, a couple issues of that, because I had given them to friends and family. So after the fire, I was able to get copies of that again. But Yeah. With the Deadly Duo, there's no printed anything that I can really refer to or use.
Now, with the launch of Ant recently, it seems like I don't know, are you going to expand the universe that you have with Savage Dragon? Because at one point you had like books for Super Patriot and Vanguard and Freak Force, and now it's really just Savage Dragon and Ant. Is that something that you're looking to expand again? And
Maybe. We'll just see how it goes. If things are going well. I've got tons of other characters that I can do stuff with. And occasionally they'll show up in Savage Dragon or Ant. So we'll just see. They'll just play it out and see how things work. But at least initially, there'll be the 2 books. The only thing is like Savage Dragon is set in real time. Characters age and grow up and change and stuff like that. And I kind of don't want to do that in Ant. So there'll be less specific dates being mentioned. It's like Malcolm and his family, they all have set birthdays of this character came about here and did this here and did this there. So I'm going to do less of that with Ant. It's going to be a little more nebulous. And when I started Ant, like the first issue, she's like 14, 15 years old at the end of issue 1. And that is kind of set in the past a little bit. So, it's gonna take me a little while to get caught up to present day kind of anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of what I'm going to do exactly, who the hell knows? I'm just making this stuff up as I go on.
No, I mean,
that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's what we do with our books too. We just make it up as we go.
Yeah.
I mean, like most of our audience though is self-publishers and people that are using Kickstarter and Indiegogo to publish books offhand. I mean, do you have advice for someone at that level to, I don't know, maybe to get a better audience or get a bigger audience when it comes to self-publishing?
God, I wish I knew. that would be an excellent thing to know. I mean, we all just do the best we can and hope that people respond to whatever we're doing. Generally speaking, it seems that an audience responds to the work that they see. So that if they really love it, they'll be like, "Oh, have you seen this? This is awesome. You totally got to check this out." And that if it's terrible, they don't tell their friends. So I think on a generally word of mouth, at least early on, is your best way forward. It's like, oh, this guy's doing good work. People like the work. They're engaged in the comic. You got to check this out. And, especially when you've got a network of various people who are all doing stuff on their own, you can kind of spread the word that way. But it's not easy. It's not, it's no easier for you to grow an audience than it is for me to grow an audience. I'm in stores, but to get a store which hasn't been carrying Savage Dragon in the last few years, how do I get a store to start carrying it again? It's like, it's almost impossible. It's like, what do I got to do to turn this around? And it kind of comes down to the audience. If I'm doing stuff that people are excited about, then there gets to be a buzz and people are like, could you get Savage Dragon in your store so I can read the damn thing? What's going on? I keep hearing about it. And doing a new book helps in that regard. Ant being a new series, like, oh, okay, I can start this one on the ground floor and see how it goes from there.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I tell Kyrun that same thing all the time. If you build if you build the audience, they'll come, man. If you just get a buzz going and get people excited, they'll support our stuff. But it just takes
it's a lot of pressure, but
but yeah.
Because you're like every issue going, oh, this has got to be even better than the previous one. I thought the previous one was good. Damn, how am I gonna do this?
Absolutely.
Oh, I taught myself every single month. It's like, oh, that's not necessarily an easy task, but we're all doing the best we can.
Well, this seems like a good time for us to go to the scripted part of our interview, which is called Danny's Quick Takes. Now, what this segment is Danny is going to give you 5 questions, and you're going to have 45 seconds to answer each of those questions. They are random questions that Danny has come up with from stalking, and I'm sorry to say this, but stalking your social media account. So let me go ahead and get this together here. And now you're going to see the clock. I'm going to bring that on the screen for us. And then once that 45 seconds is over, you will see this lovely picture of Danny pop up. And that's it. Sorry.
What are you doing?
Right.
I know, right? That's why I ask him every week. So
wait, don't try to throw this. You are the one that came up with this initially, so don't try to throw me under the bus.
I came up with this.
I don't even need a clock. Most of the stuff will just be like potassium.
All right, we'll see. Let's go then.
All right. So I already primed you for the first one. The first question is about the Deadly Duo. So if the Deadly Duo and Savage Dragon joined up, what kind of adventure would they go on?
Probably a pretty stupid one. The Deadly Duo. I mean, I have to make up something at some point. I mean, generally speaking, what every Deadly Duo adventure is the straight man trying to accomplish a task and make things right in the world, and the Deadly Duo just screwing that up. And then, so basically he has to overcome not only the foe, but these two idiots that are just making everything incredibly difficult for him.
I love it. I love it. See, now I'm gonna have to actually read this 12 boxes of comics because I got a lot of Savage Dragon in there, and I know, and I'm hoping that they're gonna show up someday. So I'm gonna get caught up.
They're in and out of the book. I actually did one in issue 250 where I did 3 different backup stories with the Deadly Duo, and all of them had the same basic plot with different characters in it of just the Deadly Duo just screwing up. And they somehow get to be victorious and all this, but that's part of their charm.
Sort of sounds like our podcast. We screw it up all the time, and somehow it works out in the end.
I love it. Okay. Question 2. So you're having a long, illustrious career in comics, and like I said, I know that you started reading comics very early. So I want to know if you had to pick the best 20-year span for comics, that being from 60 to 80, from 80 to the 2000s, or the 2000s to now, which is the best and why?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Potassium.
Potassium.
Yeah, the thing is that every era has got something awesome in it, and so what are you judging it against in terms of just pure creation? You got to go to the 60s to 80s, just because so much stuff is being created out of whole cloth. You've got a Fantastic Four, the whole Marvel universe coming into being. It's hard to beat that, and there's some great artwork in there. Damn it!
I agree with you. I agree with you. Okay, now this third one will be an easy one for you. I think I'm sure you've had this question before, and but I'm gonna put a little spin on it. So I know, like I saw in the interview that you created Savage or Dragon when you were around 8 years old. So I wanted to know if you could tell 8-year-old Erik one thing today, what would it be, and would he listen to it?
Probably not. Yeah, there's no advice I would give myself, because I wouldn't want to have any of that butterfly effect where I tell him something and he just screws everything up. Like, dude, whatever you do, don't press the red button. It's like, oh, now I want to, you know? It's like, God damn it, screwing everything up. Just relax, man. You got this. And leave it at that.
That's good advice. That's good advice.
When I was a real little kid, my whole fear was that I was going to lose my love for comics and drawing someday, and that was my whole like, oh, what if I don't like comics when I grow up? I love them so much now, you know. And it's like, don't even worry about it, kid. You're a lifer.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. So this next one is going to put you on the spot a little bit, because I know you've done pretty much everything that you can do in the process of creating comics. I heard that you printed comics in your living room at one point earlier in your career. Yeah. So I want you to rank your favorite part of making comics, best to worst, okay? From writing, illustration, inking, coloring, lettering, and printing comics.
Jesus Christ.
Do you want me to give you a full essay? What's going on?
just rank your favorite part to your least favorite parts of making comics.
Potassium.
Jesus Christ. I know lettering is at the bottom. That's just no damn fun at all. I actually enjoy coloring a lot, but it's kind of still new to me. So that's just like, this is fun. I don't have to think. So, Jesus, I can't do it. It can't be done.
I knew that was going to put you on the spot.
I mean, in terms of, it's like, I guess writing, drawing, inking, coloring, and then lettering at the bottom.
Yeah. I'm a full-time, my main job in comics is lettering, writing and lettering. And I agree with you. Lettering isn't as fun as any other part of the comic making process. I like it because I'm a graphic designer, but it's not fun at all. It's very tedious.
I haven't figured it out. So when I did it when I did it by computer, I was doing it like the worst possible way, like in Photoshop, a letter at a time, tick, 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 and moving stuff. It's like, that's not the way to do it. This is going to be a really, really long process if you're doing it that way. And it was.
Yeah. Illustrator is the program to use for.
I've heard, but I've never really figured out Illustrator at all. So
yeah.
That's just stumbling in the dark.
Okay, so the last question I have for you: what is your proudest moment in your comic career, and what is there that you hope to still achieve someday?
That feels like a 2-part question, dude. That's like
it's one question. It's still one question.
I have no pride. My proudest moment is this interview and being able to talk to you two guys. I'm so very proud.
There you go.
I'll take it, but I don't believe
I think my proudest moment, as such as it is just to be able to make Savage Dragon in every issue is like a prouder accomplishment. Like, oh, I've been able to do this for 29 years. I'm going to be able to do this for 30 years, so each one becomes the next big accomplishment. I can't believe I did 261 issues in a row. That's amazing. I hope to do more.
I love it. I'm looking forward to that issue 300 for sure.
That's going to be the title of this episode. The proudest moment is this podcast, doing your guys' podcast.
This is it. You can use that soundbite. Oh, man, he loves that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that for us. That was fun.
All right, well, that was Danny's quick takes, brought to you by, let's say, the Deadly Duo this week.
Yeah, those guys are cool.
They're idiots, but they figured out at the end, just like Danny and I.
They're lovable idiots.
All right. Well, let's bring it back in. We only have a couple more minutes, so let's actually talk about what Danny and I really wanted to talk to you about, which is how much do you want to buy our comic books and bring it into Image Comics? Like, that's what we really wanted. No, I'm just kidding.
There we go.
This has all been a sales pitch.
It has. Okay, but I did want to ask you one thing, and this is just a personal question, because when I was growing up, comics and art were shunned upon in my household, and from everything we read and what you talked to us, your dad was pretty encouraging when it came to art and reading comics. So when you decided to jump into the comic realm, were your parents accepting of that? Were your family supportive? Like, what was the reaction?
They're supporting enough. It was always, well, this seems like the natural evolution of where this guy's been his whole life. So let's hope this works out. He seems happy. Mm-hmm. So, that worked just fine.
And then when you brought home that first $1 million check,
I'm sorry.
And when you brought home that first $1 million check from everything, you're like, "Ha!"
Oh, okay.
I love it.
Yeah, worked out all right.
Yeah. Now, along the road, you've also done stuff for Marvel and DC, which we chronicled here. Has there been a character that you haven't drawn at Marvel or DC, or really any other comic company that you maybe still want to?
I was a big Captain Marvel guy as a kid. The Fawcett Captain Marvel. So that was something that I'd be like, oh, that would be cool to do that. But I think really, I would just be the next guy to screw that up.
All right.
In all honesty, because it's like everybody comes along and they're always like, they just don't get it and they do a terrible job. And every one of them says, "Oh, I love this character. I'm going to be the guy who's going to make this work." And it's like, no, none of you are. It's an impossible task. This is not something you're going to be able to do. Just trust me.
Did you enjoy the movie at least?
No, I hated it.
Oh, dang.
No, it's like, you got everything wrong. What are you doing, you idiots? So yeah, it was. I can't stand any of that. It's like you just don't understand.
I enjoyed the family element of it. I like that they at least made it child friendly. They didn't try to darken it up.
Whatever. It does what it needs to do for that, but it's not. It's not the book that I grew up with.
Right.
He was basically he was an adventurous kid who would go on these crazy adventures, and he was like a boy reporter too, which is something that they didn't do in this. And also, when he changed into Captain Marvel was like another guy with his own distinct personality. Mm-hmm. And so when they're just having it, I'm Billy, and I've got the same mind as I did when I was Billy, and I want to go buy some beer. It's like, no, that's not really the dude. Captain Marvel himself never like.
It's more like Dr. Fate. When you put that helmet on, you're somebody else. I'm with you on that. I'm 100% with you on that.
See, I'm worried about the Dr. Fate. I heard they're trying to make a Dr. Fate movie, and I'm worried about them screwing that up.
Oh well.
All right, there you go.
Don't even worry about that. They will screw
Oh man!
All right.
But the thing is, all that stuff they have to make changes because none of this stuff works. You translate those costumes into 3 dimensions, and suddenly you go, oh, this helmet, which we thought was cool, nobody can see out of that. That doesn't work at all. You're going to line up your eyes with tiny little holes in there. That's not going to work. How do you expect to be able to function?
Magic.
And all that stuff. Every piece of all those, they what the hell can they do? Are we to believe that a kid came up with that Spider-Man costume that he's running around in? It's like, no, of course not. It's ridiculous. You can't do that. Yeah. So all these compromises have to be made in order to make these things function. Because having there be guys in tights running around, that looks a little silly, but what they got now with everybody wearing a costume made out of a football, everything's got this weird texture on it. It's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, what is up with that pattern going on?
It's something to distract your eyes so you don't notice whatever. But I don't think it's a good deal. Everybody looks like they shop at the same costume shop.
Nice.
They all got the what was her name from The Incredibles? Edna.
Oh yeah.
They have the one tailor that they all go to.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. I think it would have been cool if Superman wore tights. Like real circus performer tights, like he did in the Christopher Reeve Superman things. Everybody else has got their weird textured thing, and he shows up and he's just a dude in tights. And he's like, you want to join our team? All right. Look a little fruity in that. Superman
does not need any armor or anything.
Yeah, I mean he shouldn't have it. And it's supposed to be like his blankets from when he's a little kid anyway, So oh, we made this out of the blankets we wrapped you in. That's cool.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, this has been fun. I mean, Danny, do you have any other questions? Because
no,
Eric's busy, man.
I got all my inspiration that I need.
All right. Cool.
All right. Well, this has been, like I said, it's been really fun, and we definitely appreciate you coming on. We always do this for all our guests, but where can everyone find your work, your social media, things like that, so they can follow you if they're not already?
Usual places. I'm Erik J. Larsen on Twitter, I think. You got to spell it all right, so good luck with that. I'm on Facebook. You just look for my damn head. There it is. There's no hiding in any of this stuff. I don't use any weird different names or anything like that. It's all just whatever my name is. There I am. But comic stores, I'm Savage Dragon or Ant or both, and I'll be there doing that for a while longer.
Are you planning on doing any events in this year or anytime next year, like a convention?
No, and it's really awesome that I'm not doing anything. This is pretty great. I don't have to travel. I don't have to see anybody. This is awesome. We got this whole COVID thing going on, and I'm fully vaccinated and all that. But it's like, if I can not, that would be awesome. And it's been pretty great to not do that for a little while. So at this point, at least, I'll probably do New York Comic Con next year when that rolls around. I didn't do it this year just because it seemed like people were still being stupid. So
it does seem like that, but I think I'm following your lead. I'm not doing any big shows, and I know Kyrun likes to stay in the house anyway. But
I'm an introvert. I don't like people at all. So yeah.
I'm not that bad, but it's I get more done when I'm not traveling the world and having to recover from conventions.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
And continue to do that. That would be great.
Now, since we got no more conventions, no more events, we might be able to get that Savage Dragon 100 by next year or 300 by next year.
No.
I've got to pick up some speed here because I've been kind of dragging my ass and recently.
I mean, if you want to throw some pages my way, I'll draw some for you.
All right.
My artwork is horrible. I'll draw
Nobody
it.
will notice the difference. So we'll just just put it right in there. Awesome.
Well, I guess Danny, since we're signing off here, where can we find your work and all your stuff there, buddy?
If you're looking for me, you can find me at the Ace Blade on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. My new favorite place. What about you, Kyra?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter at Taurus Comics. Also, my website is tauruscomics.com, where you can get all my books, and we'll be having information hopefully next week about the launch of my new series, StarCore, which I'm really excited for.
Cool. Oh yeah, I have a website, savagedragon.com.
Oh yeah, you do, which I don't see you update at all.
That's there. That exists. And there's like a wiki on there that talks about all the characters, and so you can look up and see when everybody's birthday is and stuff like that.
Nice. All right. Well, this has been fun. Thank you, everybody who has joined in and listened to this interview. This has been a fun interview. But join us next week, where we have Michael Watson from Freestyle Comics talking about his new book, Emerald Quest. But until now, sayonara, goodbye, and everyone, please take care of yourselves.
I want to know what it is Quick is trying to say.